So the outcome we most want, I want to come back to that question of what really healthy, good birth looks like. So when Christina, my wife, when she starts feeling it, and we're at home, and we know we want to have the child at home, um, what could that look like? What is there something I should be doing to support her? Is there a particular feeling or mindset that she should focus on? We've talked about, we're both trained in hypnosis. We've talked about doing certain things with hypnobirth. We've talked about water birth. And I think that the intention between both of us is to have as natural and free a birth as possible. We do have a midwife, but our midwife is free birth before. And I think that her desire there was she wanted one person supporting her in case she needed that kind of support. But I'm sort of trying to figure out, like, what, since we're not doing the hospital birth, what could it, or would it be best if it was instead?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So I think that many people go into, plan a home birth or plan a free birth with certain expectations of what it might look and feel like. And the fact is that it's really not possible to articulate the incredible intensity of the birth experience. And it's also, and so I think in many ways, every woman is utterly shocked by how I can't even find the words. Intensity isn't the word, but it's maybe as close as it's otherworldly. It is mind-blowingly intense. And I don't really like to use the word pain, actually, because the sensations of birth, in my experience, go far, far beyond pain. Pain is a bit of a reduction, I think, that word. And when it comes to partners and how partners can best support the birthing mother, I think this is also really important to kind of understand, because you will be witnessing your loved one in a state of primal wildness like you've never ever, like you couldn't possibly imagine her to be. And there's something really exciting about that and amazing about that. And that's one of the aspects of hospital birth, that it's one of the things that hospital birth can't handle. I think this is one of the purposes, actually, of industrial birth, is that it can't allow women to reach that point because it's so powerful, and it's so kind of explosive that the environment just can't handle that. That's one of the reasons for the epidurals, the drugs, the this and the that. And so many women have so many stories about, having these plans to, enter the hospital and have kind of a wild hospital birth, which is very much a contradiction in terms. And what so many women experience is, the nurse will come in and they'll have this immense pressure to submit to these drugs that will sublimate the wildness of birth. And so, in my view, that's one of the incredible gifts of foregoing the institution and of staying home, is that birth is a profoundly spiritual, transformational experience. And so we don't really live in a culture that has a lot of space for that kind of explosive, wild, primal, gritty, just emotive kind of transformational experiences. And so, just in my own life, I gave birth to my first baby when I was 20 years old, and I thought that I was prepared. And I had this idea that, that it was going to be kind of a cakewalk for me, because I was especially brave and especially, I heard a lot of stories about women who had a hard time birthing, or who found birth very intense or had long, difficult births. And, I figured that this would just be no problem for me because, I'm kind of special and, and all of that. And what I found is that the process of birth, while of course, obviously, it's intensely physical. I mean, there's a baby literally passing through your body, and that in and of itself is just, it's kind of even hard to really conceive of, even for me, having been in this world for so long, being pregnant with my 9th baby. Sometimes I stop and think, oh my goodness, really? Is that actually how it's going to work? But even more significantly, birth is, it is this spiritual initiation, as I see it. And it is a process of stripping away every layer of self. So I almost see the physicality of birth as having a psychological purpose, if that makes sense. So it's this sort of cyclical, circular, kind of throbbing physicality to it that takes the birthing woman to a certain plane where she feels like, this is it, I'm done. I can't do it anymore. I don't know where I am. I don't know who I am. It's so very difficult to describe. And then it requires that she move through that layer into another stage of complete unknowing. And that part is really scary. I mean, the physicality of birth is intense, but the emotional and psychological journey through this process is very, very confronting. It really is. And so what I've found is that it's really not until a woman allows herself and surrenders to this incredible force that kind of almost returns her to the most primal, animalistic state that she could possibly embody, that her baby can then pass through her into the world. And so for you, Brendon, it's going to be perhaps really challenging to witness your partner in that state. But at the same time, it's also an expression of the most intense beauty and power that you will ever have an opportunity to witness as well. And so, yeah. And, like I said before, there are lots of variables sort of within that paradigm. And in some cases, birth happens quite quickly. And in some cases, birth can take several days. And that can also be well within the realm of normal. And so I think, again, we have quite a distorted view of what's sort of allowable when it comes to birth. And in my own case, I'm really so grateful that I listened to my own intuition as a young 20-year-old woman. And I ended up really having to work quite hard to seek out the kind of support that I knew would serve me. So I ended up, in the end, after a bunch of, kind of wrong moves, I ended up hiring an illegal underground midwife. who I knew would really be able to fully hold the energy of my birth. And looking back, my own first birth experience, I failed to fall within the boundaries of what would have been considered acceptable, not only in the hospital, but also if I had been followed or if I had ended up hiring a regulated midwife, because my birth was sort of out of bounds. I remained pregnant until I was almost 44 weeks. So that's a big issue in the birth world, birth timelines. So many women are, a huge percentage of women are induced because their babies are supposedly late, when I think that is another, very faulty construct of the system. And then when I finally did, my waters released prior to feeling any sensations, and my water remained opened without anything happening. I mean, everything was happening, but I wasn't feeling strong sensations at the time. And so for about 16 hours, I waited with my water open, and that within the system, even not just the hospital system, but again the regulated midwifery system, would have been disallowed. I would have been transferred to the hospital if I had been under the care of a regulated midwife. And then when my birth process finally did really begin in earnest, it was a 3-day-long marathon, and I spent over 7 hours pushing my baby out into a birth pool. And that again would have been, I would have been risked out for that reason. I would have been encouraged to transfer or abandoned by my regulated midwife. And so, I have a lot of experience with the wide range of normal that birth can encompass. But then at the same time, there is sort of there's a very kind of normal process that can take a short amount of time or a long amount of time. And really what it comes down to primarily is whether or not the mother is supported by people who absolutely love her, people with whom she feels completely comfortable and familiar. And as few people as possible is usually a good idea. There's always exceptions, but I think in general, having as few people in the room is like, birth is not a party. It's not a spectator sport. I think a lot of women feel sort of tempted to, invite their neighborhood or, their best friends or their family to the birth. And in general, birth is a very, very intimate experience as well. And the energy and the sort of the tonal quality of the space in birth is ideally very similar to the kind of energy that goes into conceiving a child. And so we want to create that sense of intimacy and warmth and privacy and safety. Those are really, really, really important. And again, if you think about the hospital environment, that represents the antithesis of the kind of intimacy and energy that that is really optimal for a birth to unfold in the best way, or the most ideal way, physiologically anyway. Yeah. That
sounds like an intense experience, and also very exciting on some level.
It is. It's so exciting. And, I try to make sure that I say this wherever I go, whenever I'm talking about birth, which is, all the time. And that's that I absolutely love giving birth. It's the most exciting experience that I've ever gone through. And that, too, is knit into our biology. Birth is supposed to be exciting and blissful and joyful and gorgeous and just mind-blowing. And it really, really is. It really can be, again, when the context and the environment and the support system is right. It really is.
Thank you for listening to the Brendon Marotta Show. If you liked this episode, please share it with someone else who would also like it, and then go on whatever platform you listen to the show on and leave a positive review. If you want to support the show directly, go to brendonmarotta.com/show and subscribe there. paid subscribers get special unreleased bonus material and live events that are only available to them. Once again, that is BrendonMarotta.com/show. Thank you for listening, and I will talk to you all later.